The surroundings were, by any reckoning, unpleasant. A windowless space made entirely of rough-hewn stone and lit by a solitary torch set in a metal ring on the wall. Blood and other dark fluids stained the floor in morbid patterns. A broken chain, its links rusted and jagged, hung from the ceiling. Its lower extent was crusted with something that a weak mind in a weak moment might mistake for torn scraps of flesh. The air smelt putrid, overwhelming the strains of oil smoke that filled the dungeon. The three men who currently occupied its small confines were a strange match for their surroundings, and stranger still was their fellowship. First was the courtier, the man in the lead as those of royal houses often were, be their blood true or, as was in his case, not quite so. Sanjaya Gavalgini was as fully aware of his ostensible lack of nobility as he was of his factual right to rule. The contradiction made him angry and ambitious, and all the more determined to have as his own that which he believed had been wrongly denied him, the throne of the Kuru kingdom, and thus the imperial throne. For decades he had manipulated and plotted to pit his two rivals, his half-brothers, though they knew it not, against each other. Undeniably, he had been successful. Dharma Yudhishthir, once emperor of Aryavarta, was now an exile, though he had recently declared his intention to reclaim his throne, an idea that was to Sanjaya as ridiculous as it was pitiful. As for his other rival, he smiled to himself at the thought. Syodhan Kauravya, the untitled ruler of Aryavarta, had been a useful puppet thus far, but his time too was over. War, that mighty dark demoness, lurked on the horizon. She would soon lay Aryavarta at Sanjaya's feet. And yet, at this, the pinnacle of his success, the ultimate step before his web of intrigue brought all Aryavarta under his sway, Sanjaya was aware that he was not omnipotent. His rise, his plans, had depended greatly on the might of the second man in the present company. Devala Asita, the bald, menacing fire-right, his soldier, inquisitor and executioner, all in one. Sanjaya felt no gratitude for that, but was not without goodwill. After all, Devala was a fire-right and a loyal one. It was the third of man in the group whom Sanjaya remained most wary of. Sukadeva Vasishtha-Varuni, son of the former Vyasa, Krishna Dvaipayana. When Dvaipayana, the brilliant kingmaker and immaculate political master, had retired from Aryavarta's affairs, Sanjaya, who had been his disciple, had rejoiced. Dvaipayana's successor, Markand, though accomplished in matters of philosophy and ritual, had none of the political acumen his predecessor had possessed, a situation that Sanjaya had put to good use to reduce his first rival, Emperor Dharma Yudhishthir, to nothing. But he barely had any time to revel in the accomplishment, for it was then that the usually mild-mannered, insipid Sukha had come forward to reveal himself as a creature of ambition, a fact few in Aryavarta, including Sukha's father, would believe. From that moment on, Sanjaya had felt as though he had caught the proverbial tiger by its tail, for the truth remained that Sukha was not to be satisfied with becoming yet another ceremonial Vyasa who would always remain in the shadow of the achievements of his grandfather and his father. His trade with Sanjaya had been a simple one. Together they would lead the empire towards war, towards the very brink of darkness. And then, when all seemed lost, together they would offer the desperate rulers of the realm their one chance at peace, on their own terms. Sukha would be Vyasa of a new firstborn order, one that would harness the science and weaponry of the first rites to fuel its own moral imperative. The fire rites in turn would be forgiven, legitimized, even revered, once again, at the small cost of pledging allegiance to their new leader, Devala. As for Sanjaya, he would become emperor of Aryavarta, a ruler mightier than any the realm had ever seen. It was Sukha had convinced them both a plan to mutual benefit, provided they could stand united against their common enemy, Govinda Shori.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.